knees, fiddle with your rosaries, bow your head with great respect, and genuflect, 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 and do whatever steps you want if you have cleared them with the pontiff. Everybody say his own Kyrie eleison, doing the Vatican right.
Welcome back to Your Morning Prophet. I'm John. We begin with gratitude as always. Lord, thank you for another day in our lives, another chance to gain knowledge, to find our own way in this world, and to know that we're not alone. Please keep our friends and family, our loved ones, and even our enemies free of the COVID-19 virus. We ask this in your name, amen. We finished with the book of Daniel, but late in the book of Daniel there was a visit by Habakkuk, the prophet who lived about 125 years before Daniel. And then he showed up with a happy meal for Daniel so he'd stay alive the 6 days in the lion's den. Habakkuk is a very short book. It's only 3 chapters, but it's very interesting because it's a prophet, one of the prophets in the Old Testament, who basically starts an argument with God. Habakkuk is in Israel just before the Babylonian invasion and the occupation and the exile of the Jews back to Babylon. Habakkuk asks God why there is so much lawlessness, why is there such idolatry, why are there so many people not following the ways that God has laid out for them. He laments, basically, just like you'll see a lament in the Psalms, that life is not holy and that the Israelites have lost their way. God answers by saying, I'm for Israel and destroy it for a while. Habakkuk comes back and says, the Babylonians, they're worse than what the Israelites are doing right now. Why would you do that, Lord? And God answers him by saying that he's using the Babylonians as a tool to punish the people of Israel for their ways. And Habakkuk tries to understand this and is very, very sorry for it, but he understands that God's way is the only way. And in the 3rd chapter, he writes a poem of trust in God. Even though things are bad, he believes in the Lord. And even though things are going to go against Israel, he still believes that God is just and right. And there's a time before he writes this poem that God says, get a piece of rock and chisel this down, what I'm going to tell you. And one of the things that he points out are that there are bad practices in Israel and that they are becoming Babylon. And he writes this for all nations hence to know that they are becoming like Babylon. And the first couple of things he tells him is that how the poor gets taken advantage of by the rich, how the rich keep them down by bad lending practices and making sure that the poor don't share in the wealth. And the second is slave labor, is unfair business practices and labor practices, treating people like slaves and making money on their back. And the third is lawlessness and drunkenness. The leaders have decided to, partying is much more important than leading the people, and alcohol is abused. And the last is idolatry. The Israelites had lost their way and they were taking part in pagan worship of multiple deities. And the Lord specifically said they will worship no God before them, before God, the real God. So Habakkuk writes the poem, and he, much like Job wrote much earlier, that even though God is wrathful and God will bring down judgment, he still believes in the Lord and loves the Lord and will follow his ways. And there is a time when Habakkuk is having to wait a long time for the Lord's response, and I'm waiting, starts becoming impatient and says he'll be on the watchtower waiting for God to get back to him. And God eventually does. But it is a lesson that patience is very important when dealing with spiritual matters. And a wonderful example of the beauty of the poetry of Habakkuk is in chapter 3, 17 and 18. Although the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall fruit be in the vines, the labor of the olive shall fail, and the field shall yield no meat. The flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there shall be no herd in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. Habakkuk gives us a message that's very modern, in that if a nation turns its back on God and makes its God money and security and celebration and self-aggrandizement, they become Babylon, and God will have wrath and bring them to their knees. And at the time of the COVID-19 virus, many people think this is God's wrath. That's something for you to decide. It's Habakkuk or Habakkuk, or the guy with the H and the 3 Ks in his last name. It's a really interesting book to read that really transfers very well to modern life. And now it's time for intercessions. And Lord, this intercession is a general intercession. It's an intercession for people to have the knowledge and the will to fight back at the COVID virus. Lord, I make an intercession that please help people understand that they should wear masks, they should social distance, they should wash their hands, they should do all the things that will help us get this virus under control. For Lord, it is raging through our streets now. Thousands and thousands are dying, and many more thousands are sick. Lord, please bring us, I pray, I intercede that you bring us knowledge and wisdom so that we may see this virus through and it would no longer be a scourge upon us. I ask this in your name. Amen. Going back to the New Testament tomorrow, we're going to talk about the Apostle Paul, who really wasn't one of the original apostles. Some people don't know that. So, Habakkuk today, Paul tomorrow.